I watched Dave Allen fight Jason Gavern on the undercard of Kell Brook versus Kevin Bizier. For those of you who don't know, Dave Allen is a British heavyweight prospect, another one. And this was actually the first time that I've seen him fight. I've heard about him for a long time. I've seen several of his interviews on YouTube, but I'd never actually watched him. And I obviously had heard on the grapevine that he's been sparring Joshua a lot over the past, year or 2 years, whatever it is. So I was interested to see what he's all about. Now, my first impressions of Dave Allen, right from the opening bell, were that he's very solidly built. The guy's like, I guess, what is he, 6'2", something like that? 6'2", 6'3", very solidly built for that height. He's not a fat or chubby guy or anything like that. He's solid, looks very strong, but he's extremely raw. He apparently only had 10 amateur fights, and it really shows. And this was apparently his 10th professional fight. It definitely shows. There's a serious lack of craft there, and his judgment of distance was very poor in this fight with Jason Gavern. He seemed to be constantly smothering his own work all the time, and that normally happens with inexperienced fighters. Or I don't want to say normally, but it often happens with very inexperienced fighters. They can smother their own work and they don't know how to deal with a guy who's wrapping them up on the inside. It's not as if Jason Gavern is much taller than Dave Allen. They're around the same height. So, yeah, and Jason Gavern wasn't really, flying forward and trying to grab hold of Dave Allen. It weren't like that. Dave Allen was coming forward, but he was getting too close to Gavern, and Gavern was just embracing him when he got on the inside. So what he should have done is turn a little more side on, straighten up his punches, and pop the jab and keep the fight at long range. Don't let the fight go to close range. But he wasn't doing that. He was getting to close range all the time where Jason Gavern could grab him, and he was throwing these crude, looping overhand rights. And don't get it twisted. There's definitely a time and a place to throw a looping overhand right. But if the shot is constantly not getting the results that you want, then you need to change the way you throw it. You need to throw it straight, or throw it as an uppercut, or feint first before you throw it. Do something different. Dave Allen was doing none of that. He was just walking straight forward in straight lines, doing the same thing over and over again, falling into clinches, which he didn't need to fall into. I mean, he wasn't in there with someone athletically gifted. He was in there with a journeyman who was out of shape, who's slow, who, if you make a concerted effort to actually take your time and jab and throw some straight shots, you'll be able to keep him on the end of those shots. And Joshua managed to do it. So it is what it is. I think that the problem with Dave Allen at this point is as much mental as it is physical. I think he's trying too hard to impress. I think that's one of the main problems with him. And anyone that's actually got experience in boxing, you'll know that it's all about relaxing in boxing. When you're trying too hard to achieve something in the ring, that's usually when you can't get it done. It just don't click. You can't fall into a rhythm. Everything just feels off when you're in a situation like that. But once you find your rhythm, and that's all about relaxing. Once you relax in the ring and you find your rhythm, all of a sudden it's like everything is flowing, and you can see the openings and all that. And the punches are coming naturally and easily. It's like you go into autopilot. But Dave Allen just could not find his rhythm. He was trying too hard. Mentally, I think he wanted to knock Jason Gavern out far too much. Maybe it was because he was on a big show in his home county of Yorkshire. So maybe that's what it was. But also, I see the same thing with Dave Allen in his interviews. A lot of people say they don't like the way he comes across in his interviews. And to me, he seems to come across as somebody, again, who's trying to impress. He's trying to make an impression on the viewer. And some people are good at doing that. Other people are not so good at doing that. And again, I think in his interviews, it's a case of him trying too hard. When you try too hard, things just don't flow and you just come across as forced. And that's how he comes across in his interviews. And that's how he came across in the ring against Jason Gavern, as very forced. And in his post-fight interview, which he did with IFL TV, he was talking about fighting David Price, said that he'd knocked David Price's chin off and all this type of stuff. And obviously people are not going to take kindly to that because, you know, David Price is kind of seen as a bit of a victim at the moment because of the fact that he got brutally knocked out by Erkan Tepe, and Erkan Tepe turned out to be a drugs cheat. So there's a lot of sympathy for David Price among the British boxing public at the moment. So for him to come out and start dissing Price, a lot of people were just turned off by that. So, you know, that is what that is. So, he's a young guy, Dave Allen, but he's very, very raw. And he may be doing well in sparring, I don't know. But if you do get many fighters like this who can't transfer what they do in a gym into an actual fight. It's like a mental barrier they have where they perform excellent in the gym. In fact, Jesse Ferguson was a heavyweight contender back in the 80s and the early 90s. And he was an infamous, what they call gym fighter. In the gym, this guy was terrific. And there's actually footage of him sparring Mike Tyson on the internet. He has several videos of him sparring Tyson. And remember, he fought Tyson in the professional ring. And in this gym footage, he's doing way better against Tyson in the gym. And not just because he's got headgear and big gloves. No, his movement sparring Tyson in the gym, his movement, his combination punching, everything seemed much better in those sparring sessions than it did when he actually fought Tyson. Although it has to be said, the sparring sessions occurred after he fought Tyson. So, you know, maybe he was more comfortable in Tyson's presence. Maybe he'd picked up more things about Tyson, so he knew what he could and couldn't do and what have you. But either way, Ferguson was a notorious gym fighter where he would literally take some guys to school, some of the top guys to school in the gym. But when he got in the ring, he could never really produce that type of form. There was like a mental barrier there. And at the moment, it seems like Dave Allen might have that issue as well. He's been sparring a lot with Joshua. People are saying he's doing well against this guy and that guy in the gym. But in the ring, his judgment at distance looked awful. His timing looked awful. Trying way too hard to land a big punch. You got to take your time in boxing. Patience is a virtue. And when you're patient and you just think about trying to get into a rhythm, you'll be surprised how quickly those knockout blows or those opportunities to land knockout blows will present themselves, particularly when you're fighting a journeyman, a guy who's totally out of shape, a guy who's slow. They'll present themselves if you don't try too hard. Just be patient. There's a saying with, I actually see this in a movie. There was some movie where, is it Full Metal Jacket? It might be a Full Metal Jacket. I can't remember. It's one of them military movies where, in fact, let me just forget that whole analogy. But it's something to do with putting a weapon together, you know. And if you do it correctly, you do it slowly. But if you do it slowly, you're gonna do it fast. I don't know. Anyway, forget about that. One person out there might know what the hell I'm talking about. But yeah, my main point is patience is a virtue. Don't rush anything. Take your time. If you look at Anthony Joshua, for example, the Dillian Whyte fight aside, go look at most of Anthony Joshua's fights, which end early. He's not forcing it. He's actually taking his time in those fights. And he's very clinical and methodical, and he's relaxed. He's not going rushing out trying to get the knockout. It's only when he lands a big shot, then he will jump on his opponent. But up until he lands the big shot, he's just taking his time and he's quite patient. And yet the opportunities end up presenting themselves because he's not smothering his work. He's not overly eager. He's just taking the opportunities as they come and calmly and methodically stalking his opponent and having a look at them, throwing a few feints, sticking a jab out there to see what they'll do. Dave Allen needs to take a leaf out of Anthony Joshua's book in that respect. Yeah, just take your time. Don't force it. Right? If you go the distance with a journeyman, it's not the end of the world. The most important thing at this stage of his career is to actually get some rounds under his belt. Don't worry about landing a knockout shot. Worry about your technique. Worry about feeling relaxed in the ring. Think about what you're doing. There was never a chance that Jason Gavern, a guy in such poor shape, was ever going to win an 8-round contest against Dave Allen. It's not going to happen. Dave Allen just kept his punches straight. And to be honest with you, a lot of this is the way you train in the gym. If you're not throwing straight shots in the gym, if you're not trying different things other than just going forward and throwing looping punches, then trying to adjust in the ring, obviously, in a real fight, is going to be a lot more difficult. So in training, you obviously have to get yourself used to throwing punches in different ways. Not just throwing the looping right hand, but the straight one, the uppercut, and being comfortable throwing the right hand in, multiple ways, or even throwing the left hook or any shot. You've got to be comfortable throwing it in different ways. So anyway, that's my take on Dave Allen and his fight against Jason Gavern, which was a horrible fight. They were hugging and loads of rabbit punches and low blows and the referee warning. And in the end, I think it was Jason Gavern's. He either quit on his stool at the end of the fourth, I think it was, or his cornerman pulled him out. I don't know. But it was very, very forgettable. Let me know what you thought about Dave Allen's performance. How far do you think he can go? Is he just going to be a domestic level heavyweight? He's called out David Price. Do you think David Price should take that fight against Dave Allen as a comeback fight? Who do you think Dave Allen should fight next? Do you even care? Do you think he has potential or not? Let me know in the comment section below. It's your boy Hatman, I'm out.